Let's welcome our hosts, Jay Cherish and Dame Deity. This is Millennial Intent, conversations that matter.
No more respect from our youth. Today's youth have no respect for authority or parents or people in charge. Where do we go wrong as parents? Remember that old saying, a child is better to be seen and not heard, or a child needs to stay in a child's place? No longer do we teach our kids about when not to say things that are rude and disrespectful. We blame it on, oh, it's just a child. A child speaks their mind. It's story time. I remember a time when I was taking my daughter to school and I'm not ignoring the child, however, because I didn't know they were speaking to me. And the child yells out, so and so, but I didn't know who they were speaking to. Because I disregarded the child start yelling derogatory remarks and saying, big back, big back.
Love forgiving for
At
laughing.
first I laughed because I thought it was funny, but then later on, a few weeks later, I noticed that this behavior was continuing by other kids. I thought maybe this was this particular child, but I seen there was a pattern in the behavior. I recall seeing a 7-year-old being taped by their mother saying their child got suspended, and she recorded it. What did the child? She said, "What did you get suspended for?" And he was like, "Calling my teacher a big back," and she just bust out laughing, which we would all because the child's 7. But then he was like, "She was a big back. I'm telling the truth." And then I thought, well, what kind of behavior is that? And she's not correcting it. Where are we going wrong as parents? We're not respecting teachers and authority. We're not respecting our parents or our elders. It's no longer yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It's I can say what I want to you, and then there's no regard.
Hey, Susan.
Where are we going wrong as parents? This is just not childlike behavior because I believe that you're practicing who you're going to become. That's like when you see the kids in a supermarket and you tell them no and then they have a tantrum. It's the same thing as when they become adults.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot has to deal with the fact that, and I'm not dissing gentle parenting because I definitely say that some of my style is I'm a bit of both. I feel like when you say I'm a style of parenting, you've already failed in that, in my opinion, because you're never going to know what your child is going to be. I personally can take coins from as many books as necessary to make sure that, children are live people, and there's no way that one style of dealing with different people is going to work for every child. Some kids, you might have to be a little bit more firm and a little bit more disciplinarian with, and some kids may be a little bit better at regulating their emotions. Some of them, people don't affirm for children that have like ADHD and issues, like where strongly regulating where there has to be boundaries because they are not good at regulating their emotions. They don't know how to express them, so you have to put those boundaries in place. And I think that we're basically trying to have conversations with, we either give kids too much credit for what they're able to understand, or we're not giving them enough. And I think in a lot of ways, we're giving them too much for emotional maturity and then expecting them to act as mini adults. The truth is, children are not mini adults. They cannot be. We know that brain function pretty much doesn't complete until almost 30 years old. So I don't understand why you're trying to have a full-blown emotional conversation with somebody that may not understand what's best for them at their age. You know what I mean? So I understand not going back and forth with kids about everything, but the fact is, when your kid, the way we speak to our children and the way we're not teaching them how to act when they leave the house is the issue. If you want to have an emotional, openness with your kids, that's one thing. But when you send them to the schoolhouse and they're calling people by their first name, that's not it. because they're thinking because they can run over you, and you may not see it as being ran over. You just may see, oh, well, I have an open line of communication. I let my kids come talking to me. But you have to understand, in the mind of kids, when you give them an inch, they're going to run the football field. That's just how most kids are. And I'm not saying all kids, obviously, I know how you people are, but a lot of kids think that way. Oh, she's not going to do anything. They have no fear of consequence. And that's another issue. Millennial parents like to run and take their kids out of every single thing and run to their aid. So they have zero fear of consequences. And I'm not saying bop your kids upside the head, but since when is taking a cell phone, an actual punishment? They're going to be in for a rude awakening when they all of a sudden turn 18 and it's no longer taking their cell phone. They're sitting in jail.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Exactly. And I teach my daughter that. And I said, if you don't learn it here and you can't abide by rules, there's other rules. There's rules in school and there's rules in society.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't abide by the law in society, what happens to that person?
Mm-hmm.
They go to jail. And I think that I understand what you're saying about how your kids respect, how you're learning, how they talk to the parents. But I feel like a child doesn't distinguish the difference, because
No,
I
I
see
agree.
some of the kids, like, say, I know some parents that said, oh, it's okay for my kid to say a little curse word with me. But nowadays, I've seen a lot of 10, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, even, like 7 and 8. I hear them at the bus stop, mother effer this, mother this, and mother that. And I'm just thinking, you don't even know what that means. You're just going, it just irritates me. I was in a supermarket and the kid, I guess the mom had sent the kid in there with their older brother. He couldn't be more than, they were really tiny. They were 12, maybe younger. And they was like, across the store, get your blankety blank so-and-so. Hey, just putting mother effers and all that together in one sentence.
The
And
parent
I'm
or the
just
kid?
thinking, huh?
The parent or the kid?
The kid, no, the parent wasn't in there. The kids were talking to each other.
Wow.
And I was thinking, well, where do we not teach them? They're still adults in the store. You wouldn't feel ashamed. What if your mom was sneaking behind you? I know we said a little sneak diss behind the house.
I know, I definitely
but I
did.
wasn't bold enough to do it in front of another
No.
adult. And even at school, I hear sometimes my daughter calls me at school and I can hear the kids telling the teacher, shut the F up, B. And I'm just appalled that I could never be a teacher because I think I would catch a charge.
Duking up a first grader. Let's just take it outside, little Betty. Let's just take it outside.
Yeah, but I really don't think the kids can distinguish, like saying, well, my mom said it's okay to curse, because they're practicing that at home and then they go and do it in the real world. And I feel like they can't and some people, and I tell my daughter this because I've seen her slip up a couple of times, sometimes they don't know when to turn it off.
Yeah.
And when to turn it on.
No, I don't think it's that they don't know. I think this generation has been told that they're equal to their adult counterparts and they don't have to turn it off. This is their quote unquote true authentic selves, and they can say what they want to say and they can do what they want to do because the adults have put it into their head that they have, because they're people, obviously they're people, but they have as much rights as older grown adults. Saying that, and I was reading some stuff on gentle parenting by saying, that they're equal and there's no hierarchy. Like authoritative parenting means that, that there's a hierarchy. You mean real life? Because there's a hierarchy amongst adults too. I'm not going to talk to my boss the way I talk to you. I'm not going to, that's just common sense. And the fact that you're pretending that that's not a thing is going to make it horrible for kids when they get out of here, because they're not going to know how to act. They're not going to know how to talk to anybody.
But they do the same thing when I see a lot of young people and they come to work and they talk to their boss any kind of way and they don't see that respect. They're like, oh, well, this is just a little job. Okay. And it's not that this is someone that's paying me. Not all the time I had good bosses and I wanted to give them a piece of my mind, but I knew what to say and what not to say. It's common sense in my book.
No, it ain't. But go ahead.
I feel that a lot of kids, maybe they choose not to use respect or they're just not taught to respect. And I want to argue with I just feel like there's a time and a place for everything,
Right.
because you cannot just go to school and cuss out your teachers.
Mm-mm.
There's a language, and I know
And
sometimes
they don't deserve that.
they
They don't
don't.
deserve
They
that.
don't come to school to be disrespected
Or abused because
or
you don't want
abused.
to listen, talking about you have boundaries. You have the boundary to sit your behind down. But
But I think
that's
they
why I'm
get
not a
a
teacher. Go
lot
ahead.
of this stuff from TV and social media, and then they go and emulate that when they're around their friends, and they think, "Oh, we're being cool." But you understand, the person that's on the television is just grown. You're not.
Exactly.
And I think that that's where they don't draw the line. They think that they can do the same thing because in their mind they're an adult,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they can't see. And I just feel like, where are we not disciplining our children to understand that respect?
Because it's not drawing I don't think a lot of people are realizing that there's nothing wrong with opening up the lines of communication, but it has to be a clear conversation that how we speak to each other in this house is one way. But when you go to these folks' places, that's not how you talk to them. They're not your mother. They're not your father. They are due your respect, whether you like them or not. They're paying you a wage. It's a realistic expectation, because whether people like it or not, there is a hierarchy in the world. If you do not own the business and you are not your name is not on the check, the hierarchy is not yours. So we're not teaching them. Excuse me. I always taught my kids that. I've always been told that my kids are well mannered, even on their worst day. And the worst they'll do is just lie about not doing their homework. Normal kids crap. And we get that together. But my kids are older and they're homeschooled. I'm the teacher, so we don't have to worry about that. Anyway, my thing is, we're not teaching them that there is a hierarchy in the world, and you can't go on these people's places and other people's things and treat them any kind of way. That's our issue. That's the issue with millennial Gen X parents.
Exactly. And I think that especially this plays a role back on the parent, because I saw this one kid used to live down the street from me. Oh my goodness, he was a menace to society. He was difficult. But I'm patient. I'm really, really patient with other people's kids more than my own. I really,
You're
because
so
I'm
funny.
I'm always like, I'm super patient with other people. Just in general, I lose the patience at my own house. Maybe that I need to work on that. But as I
It's
see
like,
that,
you live here, you should know how to act
I
already.
know. I just feel like, you know me. You know how to act. This is what these are my rules, and this is the respect that I anticipate from you as my child. And you get with the
Yeah.
program, or there's consequences. It's just like that. But I feel like with the other kids, a lot of times they were acting out, because when I see them with their parents, they didn't do that. But when they're not there, they were acting crazy. And I feel like it was attention. They wanted that attention they were not getting, or they didn't
Yeah.
know how to do something and they couldn't express that. So then they act out. And I feel like a lot of times when some parents have a lot of children, they don't pay attention to the kids' needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they get to these schools and they're lacking something, they're just acting out, and they're
Yeah.
not getting to the root of the problem. And the kid's just like, oh, you think my kid is slow, or they're this and that. And you as the parent need to evaluate your kid. And sometimes some of them are just bad altogether, and they don't want to deal with their own kid. So they
Not
send them
just
out
bad
to the
altogether.
world. You know what I mean? They send them out to the
Mm-hmm.
world, and you can't even discipline your child. You don't even want to be around. Because most of the time I see that people like, oh, I can't wait for school to start. I'm like, dang, is your kid that bad that you don't want to spend no time with?
I absolutely noticed that. I cannot relate. So
I
I
cannot
never
relate
understood
either.
that.
Because
Yeah.
I love the moments with my daughter. She's not perfect. I'm not saying that. She has moments, but they're not to the fact that I would never want to be around her,
Yeah.
or I
Even with
would
my
push
kids'
her.
attitudes and stuff like that. I mean, they're human. So I
Yeah.
expect them to have attitudes, but even with like my daughter's like Asperger's and different stuff like that, I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine not wanting to have them around, even when they were in school. I
Mm-hmm.
don't compute.
Yeah, and I miss the days that, because we get to do stuff together, we can adventure, we can have, but I hear the other parents are like, even that, not, I'm not just saying with parents with multiple children, I'm talking about a parent with one or two, And I can see the ones that have multiple children. Maybe they like, my kids are eating me out of house and home. These kids are getting on my nerve and this. And I'm just like, you're the parent. You set this tone for your household. You know what I mean?
Right. Send them
I just don't
outside
understand.
instead of having them locked up watching playing Xbox all day.
And you know what? They don't do that anymore. I went and I had my daughter to get her little bike or whatever to go outside, and none of the kids come outside anymore. Like, I never see the kids, and the kids that are outside, I feel like they're not attended to, like they're not being watched.
Well,
Like,
we didn't get watched either, but
I know, but some of these new kids need to be watched, because I watch them. Like, sometimes my doorbell goes off, my door camera, and I see the kids in my yard throwing the basketball near my car, hitting my house, and I'm just like, I couldn't imagine leaving a 4 and 5 year old monitored by a 7 year old outside unattended. I just can't imagine why.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, 10, 11, 12, yeah, go outside, stay in the yard. Yes, but little kids like that, and I feel like that's where that discipline comes in. Some parents just like, get out my face. It's like they don't
Yikes.
even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem lies, because you put that on to the teachers and your kids can't even sit still. You're jacking them up with Fruit Loops and chocolate, and they're
Well, we got the
swallowing it.
kids, the people who don't give their kids any challenges, taking all the ADHD medication, and the kids that really do need to be medicated are running around like, what is that thing? The little Tasmanian devil from Looney Tunes.
Exactly. I just feel for these teachers, because they do not pay them enough to deal with your bad behind
Even
child.
if you did, that's not part of their job description.
It's not. And where should it be? I feel like if that's what you want to do, maybe you need to put them all in one group. I know that sounds so bad. Put them in a group, in a class, but because you're disturbing the kids that are there to learn, because you're taking up the time for the kids that know how to act. And I
Yeah.
don't think that they should have to suffer because
Right.
your kid is going through, whether you need to get your kid some help. And I had a friend like that. She would never, her kid wasn't reading appropriately. And then just like, she wouldn't get the kid the help that they needed. And they would act out in school and have these tantrums and just be a menace. And I was just like, maybe there's something there that you need to, take a second look at. And then instead of getting them that help, they just throw them out there to the wolves. And I think that teachers don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And then the respect lies as the kid didn't know how to respect authority. They didn't know how to talk to their teacher. They were bad mouthing, cursing them out. And it was just hard to deal with. And I just think that I feel like it always starts at home. It starts at home. Period.
I will agree to disagree, because I know that for some kids, it's in school too. And a lot of the factors that we have some teachers that are sick of it, or some teachers that just don't want to be there. And a lot of our kids can be acting out. I feel like if your kid is, uncharacteristically acting out, then you need to be up at that school trying to figure out what's going on. Because I noticed that's how my daughter was. She wasn't like mean or anything, but she was definitely sad. And I made myself a presence. I didn't do all that extra. I was, a single parent, so I had to do all that stuff by myself, and there were two of them. But I still made myself a present so that I could go find out what's going wrong, and make sure that I was having school meetings and sitting down and talking with as many people as I can, because sometimes our kids act out because there's things going on with the school. And just like you said, the kids come to school to act out. If your kid is making it, if your kid is naturally anxious like mine is, even those students around them can have them turn into other things. So I totally agree, but I'm going to add some extra reasons why your kids, our kids could be acting out. But I know for a fact that you are correct. The training starts at home. I say majority of people think that their kids are trained, and then when they get out there, they turned into something else. So that's definitely the conversation. Like, I think it's to sit down and be candid with your kids and be like, hey, when you get in people's places, you can't act like that.
Yeah.
It's just state the boundaries, so that sometimes kids just don't know. They just think, oh, well, I've always done that.
No,
you
but
know.
I agree with you about learned behavior and peer pressure
Yeah.
because I remember my daughter when she started going back to public school, she started, the teachers I would go to her meeting, they were like, "Oh my goodness, your daughter, she's so good, she's so well behaved." And I've got nothing but good reports. Later on down the year, the kids start bullying her about you're a teacher's pet, or she started picking up these behaviors of the other kid. And she would never talk in school, and I would get messages from the teachers like, "She's so quiet, we tried to get it out of her." And now it's like, "Oh, we can't get her to shut up." And now
Mm.
she's hanging around these certain kids that they were habitual offenders. Let's say it that
Not
way.
the habitual
Habitual.
offenders.
And you have to think about that when you're exposing whatever you're exposing, or yes, teaching your kid. And I just remember I was on a call and I just heard, the kid cussing out the teacher, and I was like, and my daughter picks up things that I've said to her, and I hear her saying it to the other child, like, "Shouldn't you be aware?" And I was like, "That's something I would say." And they were just like, "You can shut the F up too, ho." I
Oh,
was like, and she was like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard it." And she's like, "See, this is what I have to deal with every day." And then sometimes, if they're not very strong willed, they start picking up those behaviors as well
yeah, yeah.
because they're surrounded by that. I can see the attitude change. And a part of it is like, what do you do? Because no matter what, you can't control how other people train their kids and discipline, but you can have a person that's was good, and then that rubs off. It's like poison.
But
You
I
know what I
think
mean?
that's why so many things like, school choice and stuff like that is so big because your kids are going to end up being the product of their environment at home
Mm-hmm.
and in school. And when you start seeing that those actions are reactions, that's one reason why during the pandemic my kids eventually they stepped down. We started doing like the hybrid learning where they were in school, out of school, and then we just eventually just stepped down where we were doing like K through 12, and then we stepped down again to be like full homeschool because I wasn't liking what was rubbing off on them. I didn't like what they were trying to become because they were trying to emulate grown adults. They're looking at Ice Spice, they're looking at Glorilla, and I don't look at none of them. I don't listen to none of their music. So they were not getting it from me. Um, but we eventually stepped down to full homeschool, and it's like their attitude is a 180 because they don't have all those extra influences. I don't
Mm-hmm.
mind them having a good time and knowing who people are and stuff like that. I'm not trying to stop them from everything, but I do tell them that there is an age appropriateness, and at your
Mm-hmm.
current age level that access is denied. As you get older, I don't have a problem with that. I said back in the day you couldn't even get an explicit CD unless your parent was there. I
Exactly.
said we had so much control over, parents had so much more control over what their kids listened to and what their kids were, getting into. And nowadays it's everywhere. They're just going to download it on, like iTunes and Pandora and Spotify without your help. And then we have laws that don't help because they're trying to say at the age of 13, they can make their own basically adult accounts, and I believe they do that so that they can get more viewers. And these little things cause discord
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to keeping the family dynamic safe. And I know people don't think about it like that,
Mm-hmm.
but you'd be surprised what your kids listen to.
Yeah.
Like people like Andrew Tate, who was like basically anti-female. And they said that I've been watching some reports saying that because boys are listening to like Andrew Tate, it's inciting like violence in the classroom, violence against women, violence in the, against the teachers, because they simply do not want to listen to them because they think that women are below them. So you need to be watching those, listening to those podcasts that they're listening to, seeing what I've seen some like ASMR type, porn that they're listening to right in front of their parents and stuff like that, pretending like they're not doing anything. You'd be surprised. You need to watch their YouTube history and
Mm-hmm.
see what they're looking at too. I mean, all of our kids aren't innocent. Some of them are just they're good and sneaky assassin like. I'm just saying. I'm just
No,
saying.
I agree. No, because my daughter, we have this thing like I feel that I don't care if you're whatever teenager, there's age appropriate everything. Because
Yeah,
just because you're that age, I don't believe that every child matures at the same level. Some
at
kids
all.
mature a little faster, but I feel like even if they're mature at their age, they're still age appropriate material
Absolutely.
because people don't realize, well, they do, but the kids go and they do what they see. They go and
Right.
I was talking to this other young lady, same age as my daughter, and I said there's certain things, if it says rated R, I'm not going to sit in a rated R movie with my 12-year-old or my 14-year-old. I don't feel comfortable with having certain scenes to sit there with my child. I
I'm
don't
cool
do
with rated R for violence. I'm
well.
not cool with
I
rated R
don't.
for sexual content.
I and see that's where me and you can agree. I don't mind a little violence. Okay, it's whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sexual content
Violence
and
and language. Yeah. Yeah, we're
explicit
not doing that.
nudity and sexual content with my child is a no for me.
But even then, if you're a kid that I feel has violent tendencies, I'm not putting the violence in front of you either. Like
Exactly.
I had two kids that were kind of, if you're hitting each other, I'm not going to let you watch something that,
I don't like
is going
gore.
to amp you up.
Not
Yeah.
gory.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean violence like action packs and gore, I feel like are two different
They
things.
very much are. You're right. You're
And
absolutely
I
right.
don't like if I'm not going to put because I feel like these are implantations in your head. I don't want to. I'm not going to
No,
watch a
I
serial
agree.
killing my parent. I'm not going to watch what's the two Menendez brothers with my child after I done disciplined you and give
Yeah,
you.
I'm in love with Dexter and I'm not watching it.
I'm
I
not.
heard I was watching it and I didn't really understand what the show was. And I heard her mention it. I'm like, nope, you're not turning into Baby Dahmer. Get
You
out.
know what I mean? And then I was, I can't even watch you. I was trying to watch you a little bit because I
I
had
like that
it on
show.
there.
It's good,
And
but it's definitely not kid approved.
but when she came up beside me, I clicked off the TV like my parent was
Yeah.
walking in the room. And she was like, "Oh, she watches you," and I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh, my classmate said they watch you." She was like, "Oh," I'm like, get your behind up. You're not sitting with me. Go mind your business." And it was a thing that my
Her classmate. How
yeah,
old was she?
she was 13.
Oh no, baby.
And I hear the kids all the time, well, I watching you and Squid Game, and I was watching what are the other ones like Bridgerton and all the like. There was just some explicit, some other stuff, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
not
but
well,
Bridgerton and you and all those are basically soft core
yeah. So
porn.
and
Like
I
it's a
was just like,
no.
no, but I seen one of the kids like say what they were watching the Squid Game, and they
I
showed the
don't know much about Squid Games, but I think it's more on the violent side, right?
yes, more on the violent side. Is I would think of it like the Purge. I would say a
Yeah, I
little.
don't trust my kids either
I don't
on
trust
the
my child.
purge. I'm not saying that they're
But
like
see,
they wouldn't
I
hurt
just
somebody, but I don't want that sitting in their
I
head.
just
You know what
don't
I
want that.
mean?
And then I remember one time my brother was looking at something, it was a scary movie, and she was like, I can handle it. I can handle it. I think it was it. And ever since then they were like, she was scared of looking at things and they think they're mature enough to handle it. But now you can't even sleep in your room anymore because you're afraid of the dark and think that you're going to get snatched like Georgie. Like, I
It
see
don't even
that.
want you, girl.
But I'm just saying that parents just like, well, my parents let me do what I want to do or let me watch it. I just like, well, that's how your parent does it.
Girl, but the worst movies we had back in the day, because my mom was not, and I'm not a hater on my mom, but she wasn't a stellar parent when coming to picking out good movies. Like the worst thing I think I ever watched back in the day was probably every single Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that's ever been made.
Well, I don't see those
Uh
as bad in Die
they
Hard.
yeah,
I
but
don't
I don't do
really.
Die Hard. But they're very violent though. And I
Maybe
think
that's why
some
it's so violent.
well, it's not we. That's what I grew up. You didn't grow up watching that. That's what I grew up watching. And every like sci-fi type of thing, but I think that even if we don't realize it, it kind of makes you a little bit gruff. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they mold everything, but I'm just saying when that's all pretty much you're introduced to, whether we know it or not. And I'm still like that. I hate comedies. Like you can, unless there's like an action movie comedy, like I will not watch anything romantic or anything like that. I don't even I the only reason I got into Bridgerton is because I thought it was an actual period dated drama. So I love watching like PBS and watching like the Forsyte saga and
Okay.
stuff like that. So that's what I thought it was, and that wasn't it. I was
Mhm.
I was
No,
very
agree.
the biggest sign for me is when they were playing like Maroon 5, A Girl Like Me, instead of actual classical music. I was like, you know what? We're cooked. We're cooked. But I got sucked into things that I didn't want to get sucked into. That's about as far down as I go, just because I like period dramas and I like, seeing things like that. But even those, Last Action Hero and Rambo and all that kind of stuff, it can battle on you as a kid. And that's what I grew up watching. And I think that we as parents, when you know better, like I remember telling uh my I call her my sister-in-law, I was like, we got to be more careful when we're like letting our kids watch like anime and different stuff like that. Because you don't know what the effects are on the kids. And she's like, well, don't you let your kid watch this? And I'm just like, first of all, I've been watching them forever. I don't show my kid every, episode. I censor what they see and what they don't see, because I don't want them acting out things on, somebody else's kid. And that's another thing. Your kids may be emotionally mature to watch that thing or to see that thing and not do something like that. But then you have other kids that go try it on other kids, and this is how you get little
Hmm.
kid predators.
Exactly. And
You
that's
know,
another conversation, that the kids are becoming predators
Whew.
themselves. That's
Yeah,
a whole nother conversation.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I think that the parents need to be realistic about their children's behavior as well. Because
Yeah,
we go to
yeah.
school and like, little John would never do that. You are a lie.
I always said I never wanted to be the parent that always said what my kid would never do, because I
Exactly.
understand that everybody has two sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew what they're going to be. It's not that they're bad, it's just that they're different when I'm not watching them. I expect that. So I'm not going to say they didn't do it. And I'm never going to sit up here and call no teacher a liar either.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
And I saw a poll that was on USA Today, and it was stating that the respect of teachers and students has declined majorly. And they also took a poll that said the respect for parents respecting the teacher also has plummeted. They said it went from
Mm-hmm.
91% to 49%. And the
Mm-hmm.
respect for teachers, for students to teachers, dropped from 79% to 31%. So it looks like it's correlating with the parents don't have respect for the teachers,
Exactly.
and the kids are doing the
Following,
same
yep. They're
thing
following the leader.
and following the leader. So how we, and I feel like as a parent, kids no longer go by do what I say, not as I do. You have to lead by example. Even
Yeah.
when it comes to discipline, and I have to watch my tone, because I notice that when I'm upset or whatever, when I see her talking to another person the way that I talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful with your words, and you have to think about they're not picking up, kids are sponges, and they're not always picking up your good behavior.
Yeah. And I realized that my kids don't give a damn how I speak. The only way they listen is to sound like Godzilla.
Yeah,
The
sometimes
sweeter that I speak, the more they pretend like I am just a gigantic fly on the wall. I literally have to start spewing freaking dragon fire for them to keep. The only way they hear me is to add some seasoning called profanity. I cannot say, hey, can you please clean up to me? Because, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was that guy who was just like, hey, do you mind like picking up your stuff for me? Thank you so much. I'm not trying to be funny. That's literally how I talk. Yeah, thank you so much. And they're like, okay. And they'll do that for a little while. And then they'll start rolling their eyes. And I'm just like, so pick it up. And now it sounds like a metal band. And this is where we're at. So I'm what, like I tell my kids, I'm whatever you are. We can do it how you want to do it. You
no,
got to be fluid like that.
listen, I it just you got to know your kid, because even the dog doesn't like to take the gentle parent. I'm like, hey, baby, Cinnamon, don't do that. don't do that. Don't do it. And it's like, okay, it gets done. Like, why do I have to take it to the next level?
And I try to be so explanative.
Yeah, no,
Like,
agree.
guys, like you guys are old enough to pick up your own things.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
trying.
feel like this is something that I should have to explain to you. We're acting like toddlers. And honestly, I've raised toddlers and they pick up better than you. So I don't understand. Like, if you don't want to clean up, don't dirty it up. And then all you have to do is just wipe it down every now and then. I said, my room, I don't have to clean every single day. You want to know why? Because I don't destroy it. So if you
Mhm.
clean it, you don't have to do all that.
Yeah. And in my child's ears, it sounds like Charlie Brown. Womp,
Wah,
womp,
wah, wah,
womp,
wah,
womp.
wah, wah, wah.
And I'm like, you know what? These hands will do the talking because obviously you're not listening. I'm not condoning violence, but I'm just saying. Okay, so I did also see that from the AAA or the AASA, which is the School System Association. Sorry, I said the wrong. Superintendent Association. They said that a lot of the times the kids are emulating culture in what they're seeing and mocking it and going to school and sharing it with their peers so they can see more cool. So they go and see what they're seeing on Disney Channel or rappers or whatever, Nicki Minaj or Ice Spice Lotto. I don't know. They're going and thinking because that's what's cool in society. I want to be just as cool. So I'm going to go and I want furry boots like Lotto. I don't
And
know.
that's fine. But Lotto's also an adult and she's not in school.
Exactly. But then you tell them about these. They were like, well, I know like Cardi B, she was saying, well, I am not a role model and I'm not making these songs for them, but they know that these are the things that they're listening to. The kids
And
are
if
sneaking.
even if you turn it off in your home, they play it at the schools.
Yeah.
Like, I asked my kids about a few songs that they were saying. I said, well, I've never played that crap. Where the hell did you hear it? And they were just like, oh, they played it in like EDDP, which is like an after school program. I was like, I know you're lying. They're like, it was the edited version. I said, but even the edited version ain't that great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying they need to be listening to kids bop, but
I just feel like
like,
I mean, what happened to time you did listen to the Kid Bop? And then you just know I'm not trying to, I feel like there's levels to every child. I'm not trying, they have an eternity or a long time to be an adult. Be a child as long as possible. Share that innocence.
yeah. I feel
There's some
like,
kids.
you said something right there. No, I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
No, I was just like there's some kids that are put into life and society without a choice that don't have that adult. Maybe their parents. I saw this one girl who was online who lost her parents and her father was in foster care, and then she was taking care of her siblings and she was, molested and raped and still had to go out there living a real life situation,
Yeah.
just trying to maneuver. And there's kids out here worried about what color I'm going to hair, and they're just nasty for no reason.
Yeah.
And they have a lifetime. There's some kids that get their innocence stripped from them without choice. So
Yeah.
the ones that have protect your child and protect that innocence as long as possible, because before you know you're grown.
I tell my kids that. I say, you are an adult way longer than you're ever a child.
Exactly.
Stay in your place now.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be one day where you're going to pray to God that you wish you could have the same covering that you have right now. And you think I'm playing, but you're going to be old way longer than you get to be young. Enjoy this time while you can.
Exactly. This is no longer the 90s. Nobody listens to Seven Heavens and
Wait a
and
minute,
Kid
not
Pop
Seventh
anymore. We're
Heaven.
straight into uncensored music. So, with
Right.
a closing thought, I just want to say, pay attention to your child. Teach them
Mhm.
values. Teach them respect. Because if they don't learn it at home, they don't learn training, they don't learn discipline, how to control your emotions, how to know when to listen, how to know how to speak. Just respect everyone. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to yourself. It will trickle down. If every parent did that, it would be a lot of less conflict and learn conflict resolution, learn how to speak, just be respectful. Don't have to talk over everyone to get your point across. And a lot of only kids have that issue because it's centered around them as the only attention. Like, learn how to just hush and just teach your kid how to respect and teach them some manners. Excuse me, thank you. We not do that anymore? Do not just step on someone's foot without pardon me.
I don't know any older only kids that speak over people. Those are usually like young people. Only kids are usually very quiet because we're usually by ourselves. I speak as one. I'm just saying.
I speak for the ones who are spoiled and don't know how to
right.
to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for some.
Those are the youngest children.
No, I'm talking about, I know a couple of parents that have some only kids and they were very spoiled and they only, all the attention has been on them and they interrupt you while you're talking. I'm talking about younger and they're only kids and they just speak over you and they don't know when adults talking. I'm not talking to you, just butting in the conversation.
Yeah,
and
that's a boundary thing. That's not an only
there's
child
no
thing.
boundaries.
Yeah.
I think you're right that they need to teach boundaries and respect.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you have any closing remarks for us today?
I mean, while we're choosing our parenting styles, it's not about choosing a parenting style. It's about doing whatever you need to do to communicate effective situations to your children. Our job as parents are to prepare our children to be adults in the world where we're either not going to be there or they're going to have to learn how to guide themselves. And we're not raising our children for ourselves. We're raising them for the world. Exactly. So we cannot shield them from all consequences. We cannot shield them from all responsibility. And we want them to make a good impact. We understand that people make mistakes, and you can bounce back from them. But we have to understand that it starts at home. And when we go out, everybody is due to respect. Your bosses are due the respect. They're paying you to do a job. And until you can get experience and match those people on your own merit, then you're going to have to learn to bend a little. We have gotten too complacent in believing that we are just going to come out getting what we want when we want it. And we've made our kids, and I say we because we've all made mistakes, parenting. There is absolutely no manual for this. And I just don't believe that there's an age limit to start over. Even if you have a 20-year-old that doesn't know how to act, sometimes you have to get that tough love going on at 20. It's never too late to stop parenting. As a daughter and a parent, it's never too late to impart those, those hard lessons or those soft lessons, that sometimes we have to impart on our kids. So keep going and find as many ways as possible to make sure that all of our kids are going to be productive members of this new society.
Well said. And with that note, I just want to make sure if you don't teach your children, then society and culture will influence them and they will learn by their peers. So be the biggest influence on your kid. Be the first. Yes, they're going to see it in society, but be that marker so they can understand what's right and what's wrong. You're your biggest kid's advocate and teacher. Mm-hmm. Well, that concludes today's episode of Millennial Intent, Conversations That Matter. See you next time.
Bye. To hear more from Millennial Intent, hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to tell